everybody, and welcome to another episode of A Happy Moment. My name is Dan. Glad to have you with me today. And today I have a very special guest. He is the host of Beyond the Radar and Chasing Prophecy. Please welcome Tom Cahue. Hello, Tom.
Hello, thank you for having me on. Great to be with you, and looking forward to some cool conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, let me start off by asking you, what was it that made you interested in the paranormal?
Okay, so for myself, can't speak for everyone, but I grew up in a X-files, unsolved mysteries, that sort of household, right? Sliders, even whatever you want to get to, in the early '90s, mid '90s. So it was, I guess, more easily talked about in my house than maybe some other ones. Okay, so we were always, learning about like a Bigfoot or ghosts or spirits, demons, all that kind of paranormal stuff. It was, my parents had an interest in it. So obviously the kids are going to have an interest in it too, So that was definitely my first learning about it. Now I'm not an empath or anything like that, a psychic, what medium or anything. So I don't have too many. Oh, there was this moment and I knew I was. You know what I mean? So I don't have one of those. I have my own experiences and I can get into them, later. But in terms of like what got me interested, it was always like talked about. So it was something that was more common knowledge in my home than others. We didn't live in like a terribly active home or anything like that. You know what I mean? Where you're kind of like forced into believing in it because you see it every day. So it wasn't like that, but it was more of like an interest of everybody in the household. So we watched those shows, we explored that type of thing. And then growing up, you go through regular life things, your high schools, your colleges, things like that, where, you make friends and you kind of forget about the things that you liked as a kid. Well, getting older, approaching mid 30s, you start to have a little more time. You know what I mean? Because it's not as hectic as it was in your 20s where you're doing things every weekend and all kinds of stuff. So that sort of rekindled everything a couple years ago with me that to and obviously technology too. So, we can do this. We can talk to one another about this cool stuff and never met face to face. You know what I mean? So it's a lot easier now to talk and have conversations with many interesting people about their interesting stories. And that's where I sort of fell in love with it again is, as someone who doesn't have, a laundry list of experiences that I can go and talk about and tell you about and all that kind of stuff, you know, talking to everybody, mentioning I believe in this stuff, setting up groups which I can get into, and then podcasts and things like that, where people of all ages. I mean, most notably is UFOs over PA. It's a meetup group that I'm a leader of. And it was started just as, hey, if anybody sees cool things over Pennsylvania, take a picture and like, we'll talk about it. It evolved into this weekly online meeting where anybody and everybody who's in the group can just hop on and talk about some of their weird things they saw in the sky, right? And this is only one subset, but it's a good example where I've had people that they don't live now. The majority isn't in Pennsylvania; it's all over. And now there's teenagers, there's people my age, and there's also elderly, senior citizens, mature individuals who are like, wow, when I was growing up, we never had anything like this where I can talk about this because it was so, don't talk about that in public. You know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
nowadays, and I would say, especially within the last year and a half, 2 years, my generation, the generation before, are really more proactive. I'm seeing in this, and also we're growing up in a technological age where everybody has a mini computer in their pocket, right? So there's pictures, there's more evidence, there's things that they can't explain, and we're more likely to talk about it maybe than previous or other generations. So, but not to discredit them at all, some of the best meetup groups, videos that we have are people who talked about the military, and they'll tell you face, just like how we are. Like, I was told never to talk about it, and I honestly didn't think I would ever say this to anyone else. Type of stuff. The things they've seen, the things that they've been told, the things that they were told not to tell. So this past 2-3 years, that's what's really had got me even more over the top, because now you're an adult, right? Now you can, you have a job, you can go to conventions, you can invest, I guess you should say, in your hobby, right? You know what I mean? So now that we have that, and you meet wonderful people, and people that are just as down to earth as you are, you know what I mean? And just talking and communicating what you've seen, what you haven't seen, but also not throwing a blanket over everyone and everything is this. You know what I mean? Talking it out, and you find how down to earth, reasonable, and second level, and also skeptical these people are of their own stories, their own sightings. And it's great because we can have a conversation. Oh, did you do this? Oh, you know what? I checked this and it was actually that. You know what I mean? So it's wonderful how down to earth a lot of the population is. And then that just fuels me to keep going. And until everyone who wants to tell a story, I'm going to keep going until everyone wants to tell a story, can tell a story. And I'll be done when there's no more left to tell.
Have you always been a pretty open to the idea of ghosts and UFOs, or was there a time in your life where you were really skeptical of it?
Yeah, that's a good question, because when you're built on a foundation of watching other people's stories, other people's things, you know what I mean? As you start to hit your 18, well, 16 to like 30-ish age range in your mental development, right? Your brain and all of that. Um, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't skeptical. I'd be lying if I said that sometimes I didn't believe other people or in this at all. Because when you don't have that many stories of your own and you don't have things, you know what I mean? It's hard to throw that blanket statement out there and say, I believe in this, when it hasn't affected you. It's affected my parents. It's affected my brother. They have their own stories. But when it's drilled into you that it's not real, sometimes it's like natural to not want to listen to your family, you know what I mean, and then just listen to outside opinion, you know what I mean, like that's popular, right? So yeah, of course, during my teenage years, teenage dirtbag years, I guess, and young adult, it was hard to keep that faith and believing in it when it doesn't happen to you. Now keep in mind, I would be petrified if something did happen to me, you know um I'm by no means inviting any of that, but therein lies the hypocrisy that I was living. I don't want it to happen to me, but I don't believe it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it was really hard, and until you had situations you can't explain, until you get older and mature, and that can't happen turns to why not? You know what I mean? Once you see enough stuff in your life, less and less surprise you. So I think that's where I am now. But it was a great question because, yeah, having two podcasts about it, having a book in sort of that realm, you know what I mean? A fiction book in sort of that realm, having that stuff, I'm not going to sit here and say I knew it was true from birth, because it's not. That wasn't a part of my journey. My journey was, this is real. Hold on, is it? And then getting yourself fully convinced by actually doing the research. Yeah, it is a journey. It is of up and down.
Would you say it's researching these topics is uh, fairly challenging? And what I mean by that is, in this day and age, there's like so much going on with like AI,
Hmm.
and I like if you go to YouTube and you search for Bigfoot, you're going to find like dozens and dozens of like supposed Bigfoot sightings, and how do you differentiate between what's real and what's someone's like playing a joke on you?
That's a really good question, and this goes back to being a part of the community, the paranormal community. Is we have to be bigger skeptics than the skeptics, because there are a lot of individuals who want to make a cheap buck, want to get 15 minutes of fame, or what have you, because they'll put stuff out not for the best interest of the community, but for the best interest of themselves. So when we come out and can deny and disprove some of that stuff, I think it lends to a healthier community overall, because the worst thing we can do in something like this is lose credibility, because it's already something that people don't have any or even a little credibility to give to it anyway. So when we have that, we have to come out, we have to be strong about it. But it is challenging because, again, as technology advances, as video games get better, as graphic engines get better, as graphic cards get better, as cameras get better, um, the line of fake and real is gets closer and closer and closer together. That line becomes finer and finer. And when it does that, we need to be able to come together and say, this isn't real, this is. And the only way we can really do that is by getting out there and pushing those fake ones down and taking our own, video. Um, One thing that I'm advocating that I would love to do. So, Tom, you win the lottery and you can do whatever you want tomorrow. I'd buy a ranch out west, many acres, but I would also grab like Starlink. I would grab a satellite provider where I can have internet on trail cams all over the property, right? You know what I mean? And set up a hub that if anything gets captured, there's no, oh, I went and checked, but it was out of that battery and I have, no, I want, if we have the power to have internet anywhere, I'm going to want to stream everything, you know what I mean, out. And I think a lot of people would just tune in, you know what I mean, too, just to watch it, because um, if you can have a believable person and they do that stuff and they have it behind them, there's no telling what people will want to sign up for. So again, to the point of credibility, you need to have it. You need to make sure people believe you and people trust you. And so, for example, beyond the radar news.com, I put a map up. People can, there's no team. It's me. I am an IT professional, but there's no team. I get messages from the website when people want to upload their own videos, their own pictures, their own stories. And I put a little pin on a map and people can read them all they want. I'm the one that's fact checking. So that way I can check and I can give my advice on what it is. And if it's outwardly bogus, I'm not going to even put it there. So also a little plug for the website. I want to have a website that people can trust and they look onto. And it's, I just started this not even a week ago, so it's very new. But when people come to my site, I want them to see that this was an actually vetted thing, because you have a ton of Facebook groups, right? You have a ton of Facebook groups, you have a ton of groups all over the place, and people can just upload whatever they want. And if you've been a part of them, you've seen how some are over the top fake, some there really isn't anything, and they're claiming there's something there. I want somebody's eyes in the field looking at it, and that's why I made my site with Beyond the Radar. So, probably more than what you wanted on the answer of credibility and things like that. But again, we have to be more critical and more skeptical than the skeptics. We have to self-govern, because if we get behind everything and it's outwardly fake, it's not about that one video. It's about the credibility for the next one and the next one and the next one.
Okay. Now you mentioned that if you win the lottery, you want to go out west and buy up a bunch of property. Uh, I, I'm trying to remember what state this is in, maybe Texas. But are you familiar with a place called Skinwalker Ranch?
Oh yeah, Skinwalker Ranch, absolutely. That's Utah. Um,
Yeah, don't they have like a bunch of like weird stuff going on out there?
they have a ton of weird things going on there. They So if you started watching this on, I believe it's like Discovery Plus or Travel Channel or whatever it is, they have a series there of the Legend of Skinwalker Ranch that goes into, but it's more of a TV based drama. Or it's a real show, but it's reality TV, right? So I tell everybody who are fans of that, go look at the real story behind Skinwalker Ranch, the trauma that the land endured, the magnetic fields that have no real reason to be there. Many claim it's a portal area for interdimensional beings to cross into. There's the people who own the land have a lot of money and bought it up. They didn't own it right away. If you owned it for the whole time and weird stuff started to happen, you can say, okay, maybe there's a business model type thing. You know what I mean? But no, when everything started popping off, I think his name is Robert Bigelow. I think he's still the owner. But anyway, he bought the property, and this guy's a billionaire, so I'm sure he paid way more than what that property was worth just to get it, and so he can study on it. But from what I've heard from, people that live in the area, not people that travel there to study, but I want to know what people that live there talk about, the locals. There was a lot of Native American lore there, and a lot of bloodshed, and a lot of warring between different tribes back in the day. And I've met with a very wonderful psychic medium, June Edward, who said anything can hold trauma. We can hold trauma. Animals can hold trauma. I mean, a dog that's been abused and you just flinch at it, it's going to duck, right? You know what I mean? So animals, but also land. Land is energy. The trees, the ground, the wind, all of that. And they said, she made a wonderful point. She's like, why do you think it is that when some place has an accident, there's continued to be accidents over and over again? And the more trauma that's in the area, the more of a pull it's going to have. So I think when you would hear stories of the Native American tribe curse the land and things like that, I don't think they cursed it. I think it's the trauma that was there that's trying to karmatize itself, if that's even a word, you know what I mean, to get back what was taken from it in any way possible. Now, this might be highly conspiracy theory of me or not, but there does seem to be a lot of sense, because until you, as a person, you've dealt with trauma, I've dealt with trauma, we all have in our whole, you'd not be human if you didn't. But you have to rectify that. You have to get to that point, forgive. You have to get to that point and work it all out. You have to get mad. The whole process you have to do. But we can do it. I think it would take somebody else to do it for the land. And that's my whole spiel about Skinwalker Ranch, because look, I'm a where there's smoke there's fire guy, right? So how are you going to tell me that all this stuff happens, captured on video, not captured on video, locals, all that kind of stuff? That's a lot of people to bring together in an auditorium and say, here, we're going to lie about this. Like there's a ton of people there. Something weird's going on there. It's in a basin, which the geographical, it's concave, right? You know what I mean? There's mountains all around, and it's a basin like this. It used to be a lake, I believe. So when you have all of that going on, there's a lot of natural features that are going to give supernatural elements. For example, there's a ton of EMF activity in a volcano. Obviously, there's nobody's building inside of a volcano, but it's just how naturally it does there. Coincidentally, there's a lot of UFO reports around volcanoes. So some people think that these portals exist in that area. If we were to think of Skinwalker Ranch, some people believe it's the portal. And for me, I think it's traumatic land that needs to be rectified. In that scope, I'm going to lean towards that one right there. But it's a wonderful story. Please, anybody who even likes the show, seen the show, Blind Frog Ranch, all of them, look at the real story and Google it. I mean, you can find it all online, but there's a lot of FOIA data from the government of why would the government even need to look into it? You know what I mean? Again, smoke, there's fire, right? So if this was something that was a big hoax, they wouldn't need to have it classified at all. It would just, oh no, it was these guys. You know what I mean? Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
So please look into it, because I can only do it maybe 5% of the justice that it deserves.
If you had the opportunity to do so, would you spend the night in the woods in that area?
Ooh. That's a great question. I'm not going to try to sit here and be the bravest guy in the world. I'm not going to do that. For the experience. Okay, so I would do it for the experience. Did you say alone or just spend the night?
I'm going to say either alone or just like with one or two other people.
I would do the small group. I probably wouldn't do the alone. So that's why it came right down to that. But for the experience to stay there, right? I would want to see all of us who are in the paranormal realm. There's an element of see for yourself. We want to see for ourselves. You know what I mean? I think that's something that across the board 90-100% of us have, right? So there is that element that I would have in terms of I want to see it, I want to see what's going on, I want to see if I can find anything. But if my theory is correct, you're walking into a lion's den that this trauma needs your trauma to fix itself. So do I want to be right? Do I want to see it? I don't know if I want to be both. So I don't know about that one. But if it was, if it came down to it, I would definitely do the small group. But by myself, I don't know if I would feel safe or comfortable enough to do that on my own. Because there is an element of intruding. I'm not from that area. I would just be using that area, and again, an area with a lot of trauma. You're adding to it. So I think, yeah, with a small group for the experience, that would be my terms, and then I would do it.
Okay. Uh, I'd I'm probably in the same boat as you on that one.
There you go. There you go.
But
Well,
I
you,
mean,
me, and
I've
like one other guy who's good with guns or something.
I would have to think there's something going on there because correct me if I'm wrong, but that's all like Skinwalker Ranch. That's all like private property. Like the owner, he's not doing anything to try and monetize the area. He doesn't have like a
No,
tourist shop set up or anything like that.
no, no. It, no, yeah, you would that again. Now everyone's entitled to make their own buck. I'm not trying to say anything about that, but it comes off wrong, especially in this field, in this area, this realm. It comes off bad that you're just trying to make money. I'm part of a paranormal society. We've investigated houses. We don't charge people for this. You know what I mean? But we know of other people who do. I feel when you charge someone, you owe them a service. You know, which maybe you're looking too closely. Maybe you're seeing things that aren't really there. You're hearing things that aren't really there. So when you have an image to uphold in that way, using this parallel with Skinwalker Ranch, when you have that, it's almost like you need to put on a show. And anything paranormal doesn't work on your time. It works on its own time, right? Even the most haunted houses have dead periods, right? How many stories you hear, you watch TV shows, and they're like, 3 months went by and nothing happened. Well, that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're in there day in and day out, 3 months does sound like that is a long time. So if you were trying to monetize that, at what point do you say, oh, we need to put other attractions on here? We have to do other things that are more consistent. And then that leads into the discussion of maybe we should fake some of these things. Maybe we should put more amusement type things in here. And then what you originally had it for is on the back burner and doesn't matter. So the money thing, I'm happy that they don't do it because I think the credibility value outweighs the monetary gain.
Yeah, I agree with that. Tom, tell us a little bit about your paranormal society. How long have you been doing that for?
So I've actually been doing that for the same time, a couple of years or so. Actually, it'll be 3 years in November, so 2.5 roughly, I guess. But yeah, I wanted to get into it. I wanted to get in again with like-minded individuals. It was the first place I started when I wanted to get back into this. When you surround yourself with like-minded individuals that have the same interests, it helps keep you engaged. And I'm not saying that it's just, if humans had perfect motivation, we would all be gym members and, all that kind of stuff. Right. So having a group help you keep accountable really is something that's needed in the beginning. After a while, you can do it all yourself. You know what I mean? But in the beginning, I wanted to get into that. So the paranormal society that I joined after I looked into a few of them in my local area. I'm right outside of Philadelphia, so luckily I can, it's a popular area, so you can find a lot of different, organizations. But the ones I did, Um, it checked a lot of boxes. You know what I mean? Because I don't know what I'm getting into, so I don't want something where we have to have weekly calls, or I don't. I didn't even know what I would be getting into. You know what I mean? So I found one that's like, all right, you just have to do 3 events a year, and one of them is like the end of the year dinner, right? So you have all of that. There's it's free to go. Have all you needed was electronic voice recorder and a certain type of flashlight that had a different color, you know what I mean, light on it at the end of it. Um, any other tech you wanted, you can. That's all on you. But you only needed those two to join. Um, and you went through the basics, like doing an EVP session. Getting into all that, and then why I like this one so much. I didn't know this at the time, but afterward it was the preferred tour guide of Laurel Hill Cemetery in Philadelphia. One of the, I guess, like a celebrity, not like a celebrity cemetery. Like you had people from the Titanic die there, and then you have like other important people in the Philadelphia or Mid Atlantic area, and things like that. So you would interact with like regular people as well as your own society. So I would take like 12 people that signed up at the cemetery for a nightly, so like a monthly ghost tour, and we would walk around, and by after you do it a couple times, you get to know the graves and who's there, and all that kind of stuff. But you also had activity. Now this was right by the Delaware River, right? So obviously, whenever the water is involved, it seems to be a lot more paranormal activity that happen around there. So this one's right on the bank of the river. Um, it's a wonderful area. There's no like power lines. There's nothing overhead. It's not really in the flight pattern. So a lot of the background noise you would have is cars. So it wasn't the best for an EVP, but that would be the only thing that would skew it. So when you had your EMF meter and all of that, there's no power line, so you can get a true reading. You know what I mean? And it's a cemetery, so there's no power around you. So when all of those readings would come up, they were considered genuine because there's nothing that would interfere with it. There's absolutely nothing that could interfere with it. And a couple stories from there. One of the grave sites had a lamp on, and now you probably had to have some money to get into the cemetery, right? So this one family who lost somebody said that it was an adult, it wasn't a child, but they said they were afraid of the dark. So they had a custom like power drop in on underground all the way, and it would have this one lamp. And that lamp stayed on every single day, all day long, every day. And they would monitor it with a camera. And whenever the light burned out, they would get somebody out immediately to replace it. So I thought that was a pretty cool story of like for somebody right there. And right by that one, right by that grave, there was, I believe it was the youngest casualty of the Revolutionary War. And back then they used kids for not to fight, but drummers and bugle, whatever it might be. I believe he was a drummer. He was 13 years old. He was unfortunately killed in the Revolutionary War. So I'm walking with another one of my guides, right? And we tell everybody, we tell every single person, if you see something, say something. Because if you are like, I don't know if I saw that, if everybody did that, nobody would see anything. So you want to get attention to it as quick as possible, because it's not like TV. It's not like the movies. These things are within fractions of a second that they're there. You know what I mean? So somebody might catch a quick glimpse, you know what I mean, and corroborate what you were saying. So anyway, we tell everybody that we're walking, and we come up, and there's not a lot of trees there, so it's a pretty broad area. But they have a lot of mausoleums and huge like cement, steeples and things like that. So there's a lot of concrete in the area. So I'm walking, and over by the mausoleum right here, I saw two legs walking towards me, and then turn around and walk really fast away from me in Revolutionary War garb. I stopped, and before I could tell my guide, before I could say, he said, you saw that, didn't you? So he saw what I saw too. He said, what did you see? Don't tell me. What did you see? And I said, only the bottom, like a pair of legs walking towards me and then quickly run away from me, like walking pretty fast away from me. He said, that's exactly what I saw too. Nothing from the waist up, just a pair of legs. So quick joke, I say I don't even have a full body apparition yet because I have a half one. So, so that was pretty cool. So we turned around, right? We turned around right to everybody. Did anybody see anything? And somebody's like, I saw two pairs of legs walking away. And somebody in the back said, I saw that too. So you had two people professional, right? And two just out for a Friday night cemetery tour with friends, like a group of friends going to do it. All four of us saw the same thing. They were terrified because when you go, you just go for the fun and all of that. They didn't believe, and we made two believers that night. So I'd like to tell that story that if you are with anyone and you want to go do, and I don't know who listens, but if you wanted to, and your local cemetery is doing a tour, and you pay $20, and afterward they have like light snacks, and this place had like light snacks and some beer and soda that you could buy afterward. Definitely go, because even a cemetery that you wouldn't think is haunted, being in Philadelphia, right? In Philadelphia, what cemetery you can catch something. So always keep your mind open.
Absolutely. Are there any stories that stand out in your mind that you've heard or experienced that you can say, like with very little doubt, that was real?
Absolutely. So, um, my my first paranormal encounter wasn't even human. And when I say that, I have to be cautious because I don't mean like a monster or anything like that. It was actually of a pet. So, I'm young Tom, so 9, 10 years old, around that time. Parents were divorced, but still in the same school district, and nice to each other, so it wasn't a bad thing. So my dad kept the house. My mother was living in an apartment, and they were right nearby. Right. My dad had a couple of cats. He had the basement. It was unfinished. It was on a hill. Always leaked. Right. No matter how much waterproofing you did, it always leaked. So he's in the living room, and it was a rancher. So there's like a living room, a hallway, and then the bedrooms on the either side of the hallway. So I was at the end bedroom, the end of the hallway bedroom, which was my dad's, who had another TV in that room. And me and my brother would just like sit on the bed or lay on the ground and watch the TV in there while he watched TV in the living room, right? I guess I was being a pain in the ass. I wanted the cats to come up, but he's like, no, don't let them come up. I don't want them up here, all that kind of stuff. They were in the basement. I'm watching TV, and the door's open to the hallway. And I remember sitting, and I had the pillow propped against the side of the bed. So I'm like half laying, slouching type thing, watching the TV. And I look, and our cat came into that room. The cat's halfway in the room, halfway out. And as soon as I get up, and I'm probably within 4 feet of it. You know what I mean? I get up, it turned and started walking away, not running, walking. So I get to the door and I look down the hallway, which this thing would have had to have been full speed for me to not walk 2 feet and already get around the corner. It was not there. I came out and at the end of the hallway is the living room. My dad's right there. And I was like, oh, you let the cat up here. And he said, I didn't let the cat up here. I'm not letting the damn cat up. All that kind of stuff. So I look, and the door to the basement is still shut, and I could see that it was still locked. So I go and I unlock it, and I open it, and I go down. And both cats are there in the corner, and the basement, during a heavy rainstorm, it has like this much water in it, and they're in the only dry area that it hasn't got to yet. So my dad came out, I was like, oh, crap. We walked through the water, we got the cat, and we brought the cats up. And I said, you didn't let the cat up here. I said, I saw it right there. He said, no, I didn't let the door was locked. This thing would have had to ran through the wall to get back downstairs. You know what I mean? That's after seeing that was my first paranormal experience. And it's funny because it's not even a person. It was an animal. And for whatever reason, astral projection, whatever you want to call it, that cat was in trouble and sent itself for me to come find it. So that's my first one.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty incredible. Uh, did anybody believe you when you told them?
Yeah, my dad did. My dad did because he was there. There obviously I had so the way the rancher house is, If I'm in the bedroom, I have to walk through for him to say he didn't do it. And for me, if I did it and was playing a trick, I would have to walk in front of his face, open the door to the basement, shut it, lock it, go back into the room. You know what I mean? Lay down. That cat would have to come. And somehow that cat would have had to ran past him again, unlock the door, unlock the basement door, go downstairs, lock it from the inside. It was impossible. And it was the only thing that I could hang my hat on, that is impossible. There's no other explanation. I've had UFO sightings. I'm not up there. I'm not in a plane. You know what I mean? I can't, but you can, I have a feeling of I'm looking at something I can't explain. I don't know what that is. You know what I mean? But in the end, could it be a military craft? Could it be something like that? I have stories from my brother and my mom of seeing my um, past my grandmother after she passed, but that's their stories. I have other story about in a friend's basement, a guy in the dark swinging in a rocking chair, but when I went back down, there was nothing there. We turned the light on, nothing was there. That could have been, maybe that was me, but this was one thing that I saw. I saw shadows of. It wasn't a split second. It was 3 or 4 seconds, and when I went to the cat, it turned and started to walk away. That to me is the only one, but it's the most incredible one because I literally cannot explain it, and still I get giddy from that premise.
Are there any aspects of the paranormal that you don't believe in?
Good question. So so I want to phrase this the correct way. Just because I haven't experienced something doesn't mean I won't. And just because I haven't doesn't mean I don't believe it. I've heard stories from other individuals who have talents and gifts that I don't possess. And it's so easy to say that can't happen because ultimately you're still a person and ultimately you still have that stuff drilled in your head. You know what I mean? That this isn't real, this isn't true, what have you. Um, I guess what I am having the hardest time to come around on because it's so foreign to me would be the talking to the dead, the psychic, the medium stuff. Um, and again, I think it's an unfair rap because I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. I haven't done it, and I haven't seen something come true from when I would go. Right. So, again, everybody's different and other people have stronger talents than others. Right. So, to me, that would be, I'm not saying I can't ever believe in it, but right now, that's what I have the hardest time believing in.
Okay. Um, yeah, I have not had any kind of experiences whatsoever with any type of paranormal things, but
Okay.
I I'm definitely not going to discount any of it. I believe there's a good chance that a lot of that is real. Uh, Time.
Yeah.
So you mentioned with your
Mhm.
paranormal society that you've done like investigations in houses. Um, Tell us a little bit about that. Like, how does that work? Is it any different than what we would see in one of those TV shows?
Um, so not terribly different, but so somebody would send a message, email, what have you, and say, "I'm having some activity. Um, do you would you mind checking it out?" And after sort of a discovery call, because we don't go into anything dark, demonic, or anything like that. We have a couple empaths on the team who can feel the energy and will not put us because most except for me the average age is probably like 58. You know what I mean? So they don't want to put anybody in that. Plus, you know, we don't really have a strict ritual of like cleansing ourselves, all that kind of stuff. So you need to have a discovery call. You need to figure out that the energy is light, and even if it's human but just like an annoying guy, that's fine, just nothing demonic. um so when you have that, you have the call, we go in, um we put we'll put like EMFs, or I'm sorry, our EVP recorder, right? And we'll stand in a circle and we'll do an EVP session right in the beginning. Right when we get in, after our prayer and the family, like goes outside or whatever, make sure you scope the house. But we don't have those necessary cameras and tech and all of that kind of stuff. So we kind of have to move in a group. You know what I mean? So we'll start an EVP session and we'll all start at the same time. Because here's why. You stand in a circle, you all start at the same time. If I cough, you know what I mean? You go, cough, Tom 154. You know what I mean? So you call it out. So everybody, on everybody's device, you have that. So often, you will get an EVP phenomenon on, if there's 6 in a circle, on 2, 3, or 4 devices, but not the other 2, 3, or 4, which is really odd. And I mean really odd, because when I stand in a circle, I mean like we're in a circle, like you're just standing around and somebody's asking you a question. You wait 5-10 seconds and then you go to the next one. So when you hear that, there's no possible way something can get on mine and this person next to me and this person on the other side, but not the other 3. There's no way. So that's what makes it paranormal to us. And it's the same device. I want to preface it that way. Yes, if you have like a $99 one compared to like a $10 one, they're probably, the 99 is probably going to pick up a lot more. So, but no, we all have the same one. That's what's really great about it. Then we'll walk in, after we do that, we'll walk and we'll get the K2 meter out and we'll do a scan of electrical outlets, things like that. So we know where the artificial stuff, where to stay away from. You know what I mean? And then you find a place that's 0. So, okay, there's nothing in this area, you put it there. That way, if anything comes by, you're getting a true reading and not a fluctuation off of the, tech or electricity or whatever. And you ask questions that way. And we have also, finally, a third way to communicate, which are dowsing rods that the leader of the group, he's good with them, and there's another guy on the team who's good with them as well. And he holds them and they cross, and every time is different. So when you get there, you hold the dowsing rods and they're straight, and you say, show me yes. And if it stays straight is yes. And say, show me no, and it'll cross. That means cross is no. But sometimes cross will be yes. And you always have to start new every time. So when you do that and you ask questions, we've gotten a lot of good answers that way. For example, one of the answers that we said was, did you used to live in this house? We didn't know anything about the history of the house. We just want to know about the spirit and anything. And we were like, does your name start with an H or a T? And then when we went to the house owner afterwards, we're all done and packing up. We're like, I believe it was H. Did you have anyone here who used to live here with the name H? And she said the previous house owner's name was Henry, who just passed away like 3 months prior. So really cool, you know what I mean? Stories like that we had no idea about. And, she never told us because it's a previous owner who really thinks about that kind of stuff. So that's how a traditional one goes. We don't have the bells and whistles of the TV shows, but you can get a lot of the same answers that way.
Very cool. And just in case anyone might not be familiar with it, EVP is electronic voice phenomenon.
Yep.
And that's just, have you ever had anything like really clear come in?
I've had my name come in. I've had hello come in. I haven't had a 2-syllable, or I mean a 3-syllable or a sentence or anything like that yet. I have heard some that the others have had, but personally on mine, I've had my name, I've had yeses, nos, and that's really what we stick to anyway, is one word answers. You know what I mean? And try to get that that way. But our EVP sessions are more structured. So we're all in the circle, we're all doing that. Typically when you see on shows, they'll have it running, recording no matter what, but they have a lot more devices than we do. We have this handheld, like little gadget thing like that. So, I've had my name was definitely the most chilling one. And also it'll send a little shiver when you ask a question and you get a yes, you know what I mean? Like that. So.
Yeah, that'd creep you out a little bit, I think.
Definitely.
Tom, can you tell us a little bit more about your shows that you have Beyond the Radar and Chasing Prophecy? What kind of
Sure.
content
Thank
you
you.
cover?
Absolutely. So, Chasing Prophecy is 7 to 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 6 o'clock Central Time. And that is a guest based podcast about anybody and everybody in the paranormal realm who has a story to tell or wants to talk about some of the cool stuff that they're finding. We've had everything from NASA scientists to near death experiencers to Bigfoot hunters to you name it. So it's a radio show, also a podcast, comes out the next day as a podcast, but it's a live radio show. You can see us on UPRN, on Facebook or YouTube, or Chasing Prophecies Facebook or YouTube page. And if you're in Louisiana or Mississippi, it's 105.3 and 107.7 FM on the radio there. Beyond the Radar is your paranormal news program. So that's, Chasing Prophecy is co-hosted myself and Jenny Nicasio. Beyond the Radar is a paranormal news program. So I'm the one I research every week, and Thursdays at 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern, we go over topics of the week, um, news stories, you name it, what has happened. And I go over it and cover it and just give news that mainstream media and news doesn't want to cover in terms of that. So that's where my podcasts are. And if you don't mind, I also finished my book here, Healer. This is my author proof.
Yeah.
It is a supernatural mystery crime thriller. And the premise of the book is Daniel Knight, the cover guy right here. He is a psychologist, and he can channel into you and absorb your trauma and remove that from you, and then deals with all of the implications that come with it. Is that really a gift, or is it really a curse? So it's a wonderful fiction book, my first foray into that. And it's available for pre-order now and comes out for sale May 5th, May 14th.
Was that inspired by any real life events?
Not so much that anyone has channeled into me and absorbed trauma, but the idea behind that is I wanted to think about, if we remove trauma from people's lives, would they live carelessly? And just because this guy can do that, does that mean he has an obligation to do that to people? I wanted to explore those topics, and it's a very thought provoking book. Um, Involves murder and things like that. It's definitely a crime novel, but I want people to think about the topics of this also more than just the story. And it's a wonderful story, great story. I've gotten some awards, and I'm already climbing up on the pre-sale ranking, so I'm really excited for it to actually come out. But any book that I author, I want people to think about the whole concept of the book, and even more than the story.
Well, cool. Well, congrats on that.
Thank you.
And Tom, before we wrap things up here, do you have anything that stands out as like a favorite story of yours that you like?
Of that happened to me.
Yeah.
Okay. So a favorite story that I would have in my travels is actually hopping on um, to Chasing Prophecy and really working with Jenny to help get the show to where it should be. We have a ton of, and I don't want to sound any way, but we have over 300,000 listeners, loyal listeners every week, and I think it's really cool that um, being down on FM bands in the South, we really can amplify a message to people who want to hear it rather than just being regional. So when we talk to guests and the interactive part where it's a live stream, so people who are on the comments can comment in a question, we really push for people to question, because we're going to ask our questions. You're a podcast host, so we're going to ask questions, but if somebody can pipe in and be like, oh, can you ask them this? It's like, yeah, sure, why not? So I think one of the coolest things is hopping on Chasing Prophecy, interacting with fans, interacting with people who want to know more about this, and getting those questions answered. Because when you watch TV, it's already pre-recorded, it's already done. Here, interact with them, tell them, make me believe. Because everybody's has to prove themselves in this field, but having them, being able, okay, well, here, let me do this, this, and this, and then really see how people change their mindset, I think is one of the greatest things about it.
Yeah, very cool. Tom, how did you meet your co-host? Was
I
it
was actually
someone
a
that you
guest.
knew? Okay.
We just hit it off, and she's like, I really, we really had a good thing going on there, and we really saw things a lot the same way. So do you want to trial host with me? And I did a few episodes, and as long as the numbers stay, you know what I mean, the same, and people are like, I don't want to hear this guy, and they tune off. But no, they liked it. They've welcomed me on, and the fan base is wonderful. So I really, it's my honor to be on UPRN, and it's fun to say, hey, the South likes me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tom, you mentioned that both your shows, Chasing Prophecy and Beyond the Radar, are on Facebook and YouTube also, right?
Yes, they are.
Okay. How about any social media links for yourself that you'd like to mention?
Sure. You can look me up, Tom Cahue, Cahue, Facebook, all the socials, all the kind of good stuff. Um, and if you want to subscribe to our channels, Beyond the Radar on YouTube and Chasing Prophecy Radio Show on YouTube, subscribe and you'll get a notification every time we go live for our episode. And you can just watch it from your phone, watch it from the computer, or if you're in the South, turn on 107.7 FM in Louisiana and 105.3 in Gulf Point, Mississippi, and hear us on the radio. We're more than happy to take any questions, and feel free to stream me on social media, because you can just type in your question and it pops right up on the screen for us, and we'll ask your question to our guests.
All right, very cool. Tom, this has been a fascinating episode, and I want to
Thank
say
you.
thank you so
Yes,
much
it's
for
been
joining me.
wonderful. No,
All
thank
right,
you, and your wonderful audience. Thank you so much for having me on, and I'm glad that I hopefully somebody learned something from me.
yeah, definitely. Tom, and I hope to talk to you again too. But until next time, thanks again, and I want to thank all my listeners. If you want to learn more about my show, you can find me on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and just recently I'm going to try out Instagram and see how that goes. Just search for a Happy Moment podcast, and I will see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.
Bye.